It is the end of an era in Connecticut television. After 4 decades of serving Connecticut, Jerry Franklin has stepped down as the CEO of Connecticut Public, which is CPTV and WNPR Radio. And with us here today is Jerry Franklin. And Jerry, so great to see you here today.
Thank you, pal. Good to be here.
Look back, you came to Connecticut in the 1980s. What's the biggest change you've noticed in the last almost 40 years?
Just explosive change. And one of the things that, that we had to do early on is to figure out how to compete with media giants like you and this crazy media landscape. We know that we can't compete with guys like you and your parent on a program by program basis, hour by hour. So we had to look at it differently, look at it from a larger angle. What role could public media play? So we started looking at almost societal issues. For example, how is the media treating women in sports? And what's going on in children's television? Or how are we treating our veterans? So no one was paying attention to those types of topics, so we had to delve into them. So that was a major change for public media to look at something from that perspective.
Let's begin with children's television, because a lot of people don't know you really are responsible for bringing that lovable purple dinosaur to homes across America. Barney, how did that happen?
Well, Larry Rifkin, he and his daughter were at a Super Bowl Sunday. They weren't watching Channel 3 that Sunday. They go to a local video store, Blockbuster, remember those days?
Yeah.
And they see this purple dinosaur on the front of a video cassette. Remember that technology?
Oh, yeah.
So they pay their $3.95 to rent the video cassette, take it home and look at it. Larry's little girl loved it. So Larry brings the tape in on Monday morning, said, Jerry, take this home, let your son look at it. So I did. I wasn't too impressed. Production value is very crude, very rough, but my son was mesmerized by Barney. Long story short, we circulated this VCR tape. I think we had to pay a fine for keeping it longer than a week, but we circulated it to people with parents and young kids and said, take a look. What do you think? Every child loved it. Parents weren't crazy about it. So I almost have to apologize to your audience for throwing Barney at them, but the kids loved it. It became the #1 show for kids in public television.
And you brought it nationwide.
Yeah.
And let's talk a little bit about women's sports, because CPTV really brought women's basketball here in Connecticut. UConn, the UConn Huskies. You started broadcasting those games, which were not broadcast before.
First of all, we saw Rebecca Lobo's name in print, and just the characters in her name, Lobo.
Yes.
I didn't know anybody whose name was Lobo. Yeah. I said, who is this giant of a woman who lives almost in Connecticut? So we started paying attention, and there was a state representative, Fred Jelsey. He's in heaven now. He said, Jerry, have you ever considered putting the girls on television? That's what he said, the girls. I said, no, we haven't. He said, well, you should. He said, you should go out to stores and watch these girls play basketball. So we did. Larry Rifkin, the head of programming, we go to stores and we say, wow, this could be a television show.
And it was a big hit.
Yeah, it was.
Was there resistance to it when you pitched it?
No, the only resistance was inside the company. They said, Jerry, you mean you're going to blow away the PBS NewsHour? What if there's a game on Sunday night, Masterpiece Theater? What about the Nova lineup? You're going to blow away those wonderful, wonderful shows for women's basketball? We said, yeah, we're going to try it. It became the #1 show throughout the country.
I want to talk about the future of public broadcasting, because, as you know, there's been a few death knells over the years where people have said, oh, it's coming to an end, and certain presidents will say, listen, we're going to cut funding.
Yeah.
How have you survived, and what is the future?
I think the future is bright. In fact, I'm kind of regretful that I've announced my retirement. I think the future is brighter than the great glory days of the past. I think this crazy media technological world, and I think the market is coming to us, because we've made a great success of figuring out how to serve small audiences. You add them all up, and you get a nice number. So the audiences are getting more and more fragmented. There's a new technology on the table every day, what we call the over-the-top technology, as you know. I think that's perfectly made for public media. Our challenge is how do we grab people's attention in 60 seconds or in a 90-second bite? We're accustomed to doing 90-minute documentaries, so we got to change from that way of thinking to grab your attention in 30 seconds.
CPTV relies heavily on philanthropy, As a state, how does Connecticut rank in terms of philanthropists?
I thought you were going to say as a state. We love the state of Connecticut. They've helped us over the years with our infrastructure funding. We don't receive any state money at all for our operating budget. Some of my colleagues around the country, some of my PBS colleagues, will receive 60 to 70% of their operating budget from their respective state government. We don't receive a dime of state operating support from the government. But from time to time, from the state, we get 5% of our budget from the federal government. But from time to time, the state of Connecticut has been very, very helpful to us. They will provide us from upfront seed money. For example, we wanted to get into the business of training veterans, and we needed some money to do it. Went to the state, wrote a grant. They afforded it. I mean, they gave us the grant, and it's a very successful program.
When you sit across from a CEO or a potential donor and you have to make that argument, here's why you should donate to public television, what do you say? Like, why is it important?
Well, it's different, but that's a great question. This guy has good questions. Just recently, sat in front of at a CEO's desk, and I said, listen, there are an awful lot of veterans being trained. Most of them are being trained poorly. The president of Walmart told me there are 40,000 organizations that were spawned in the past decade whose mission is to provide services for veterans. Over 60–70% of those 40,000 organizations are bogus. And we said, we can train veterans. We had no idea how good we would become. But I tell the CEO, I said, we take 50 veterans a year. We bring them in, teach them media skills, not to grow up to be like you or me, but using digital skills in their everyday life. And 85% of the veterans we train, we get them a job. That resonates well.
Final question as we're running out of time. What is next for Jerry Franklin? You've been doing broadcast since you were a kid.
May I withdraw the question that you asked good questions? What am I going to do? A lot of people have asked me that. I'm going to be very careful about the commitments I make. I'm only going to associate with people that I really like. And every day when I look at my calendar, it's going to be something that I have included in my calendar. And no longer I have 100 apples to polish on a daily basis.
It's exciting stuff. Jerry Franklin, we thank you for all you've done for Connecticut, for me personally, and our state. You will never be forgotten. And best of luck with everything. Thanks for watching Face the State on this Sunday. Don't forget to take our tolls poll. And we'll see you back here tonight for the news with Kevin Hogan. And I'll see you tomorrow at 5.